What is up, everybody? I am the Young Rocket Man. Have you ever been putting together a rocket and realized that you do not have all the necessary materials to make one, such as glue, a nose cone, an airframe, and fins? Well, I have a solution for you. Let me introduce you to Unstuck from the Pad. This is my latest project and the most absurd. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about how to win a bet about making a rocket. Oh, and I guess on top of that, I'm going to show you how to make a duct tape rocket. Let's start off with a bit of brief backstory. In August 2024, I was flying rockets at Bong with Whoosh for the August event, and I was talking to some guys down there, and one of them mentioned about how you could possibly replace glue in a rocket with duct tape, and my crazy brain then thought out loud, hey, what if the entire rocket was duct tape? Obviously, we all kind of laughed it off as impossible, but it kept spinning in my head, so I knew I had to try it. I started off by looking at a simple design inspired by an Estes kit that I made the previous year called the High Flyer. Essentially, the rocket would be a small, minimum diameter airframe, and the only other criteria that it was entirely made of duct tape. With that in mind, it was time for assembly. One of the main issues I had at the beginning was how to ensure the airframe that I made was the right size for the motor. If it was too small, it could not fly, and it also needed to be as close to an even cylinder as I could get it. So I came up with a design in odd shape for hardware for rolling the tubes for the rocket. The design was simply a cylinder that would be printed and would sit there as I wound tape around it. But there was also the issue of how to put an engine retainer into it. So to solve this, I put a groove a little ways up the casting tube that the retainer would be formed in, and once it reached the size of the casting cylinder, I would join it to the rest of the airframe. And to ensure the casting tube could come on and off easily, the caster would split just aft of the retainer, and the aft section would slide out, and the forward section would come out the top. With this design finalized, I went and printed it on my 3D printer. Once the retainer was done, the rest of the rocket airframe was relatively simple to make. I did one layer with the sticky side facing outward so it would not stick to the caster, then all of the outer layers had the sticky side facing in so it would not literally get stuck to the pad. In total, there are something like 10 layers on it. I went with a gut guess for what the number should be. It was around this time that I actually took a short break from working on the rocket to focus on other things in my life. And by short, I mean several months, until a few weeks before the scheduled launch. When I finally had the courage to finish the project, the first step was the fins. Originally, I wanted to have the fins be a trapezoidal shape, like a lot of other fins on my rockets. But when I realized that this would be too complicated, I went with triangular fins. The fins are made from 4 layers of tape arranged in a 1" by 1" square, with the sticky side facing inwards towards the center. To give it strength, the 2 outer layers have their main cross strength going perpendicular to the inner layers. This was to maximize strength, and originally I was going to do 2 more layers on either side going diagonal to that second layer, but I decided not to for time reasons. I then cut the fins with scissors by cutting from corner to corner, making 2 fins in the shape of a 45-45-90 triangle, and then I repeated the process for another set. Making these fins turned out to actually be rather fun, but what was definitely a real pain was the nose cone. I intended for the nose cone to gradually taper towards a point on the top, but this ended up not happening, and it was just blunted. The harder part, though, was the shoulder. Since the nose cone is hollow, I decided to simply take the shoulder, put part of the sticky side facing outwards, and have this sticky side join with the inner part of the nose cone. Making this was actually relatively easy, since I just needed to roll the duct tape into a cylinder and not go over the size of the airframe. Once this was done and it was stuck inside the nose cone, though, it was time to figure out the recovery system. I had made a duct tape parachute out of green and orange duct tape to go into the rocket, or at the very least make a streamer that would attach to the shock cord. I tried, I really did, but the duct tape parachute was way too inflexible, and I just could not fit the parachute in the rocket, so I ended up taking a regular Estes parachute and put it in so that I knew it would entirely work. I also intended for there to be a duct tape shock cord, but I could not for the life of me figure out how to attach it, so I ended up using 3 fishing lines super glued to the rocket. In a future video, I'll explain why using fish line is stupid, but it did not matter for this flight. I whipped up a little duct tape loop and taped it onto the end of the nose cone shoulder to attach the parachute and shock cord to. And with that all set, all that was left to do was to make the launch lug and send it. The launch lug is nothing special. I did the same approach that I had done with the airframe with a spare launch rod in my basement, and it came out pretty great. When I had started this project, I had no idea how it would turn out, and looking back on it, I probably should not have done most of these steps in a few days, or even the day before the launch, but you live and learn. With the tape ready, it was time for flight. I do a lot of my flights at the Bong Recreation Area with Whoosh. I myself am a member, and it is the closest place that I can go to fly things such as high-powered rockets that go thousands of feet in the air, or a rocket entirely made of tape. There was a slight issue, though, that I was concerned about when we got down there, and it was the heat. My biggest fear was the duct tape potentially delaminating in the heat and coming apart on liftoff. I was not too concerned about the ejection charge, though, because of the wadding in place. Because I did not want to wait around as the duct tape lost its strength, it was the first one I launched that day of the 3. And I'll let the footage speak for itself on how the flight went.
Going in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Excellent. A little on the unstable side there. Alright, next.
The flight was mostly successful. We had stable flight for the most part, apart from some tumbling at the end, but that is to be expected given the uneven surface of the airframe. The other thing is that the parachute failed to come out. I believe that this was mostly because the parachute got stuck in the tube, probably not to any of the tape though. The nose cone came off though just fine, and in theory I could fly this thing again. What do you think? Would you like to see me fly this thing again? If you do, let me know in the comments. I'm really happy overall with this rocket, and I think it shows how creativity can be great, especially with a material as novel as duct tape. That is going to be all from me today. Thank you so much for watching. It means a lot to me, and if you think others would find this project interesting, please share it. And while you're at it, I'm getting onto a weekly schedule, so consider subscribing to my channel to see those videos drop. That's all I have to say for right now. Have a good rest of your day.